Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm going to welcome everyone. My name is Paul Breda, uh, and I am a Wharton taxpayer, citizen. Have lived here since 2009 and was a school board member for about 13 years up until last December. So if you're like me, your mailbox has been getting filled with campaign flyers, uh, primarily from the incumbent council people. And when I get so many flyers, I start looking at the claims that they're making, and I have a lot of questions. Uh, Incumbent candidates have a record to run on, but they also have an obligation to provide an accurate record. These candidates, Robert Norton and Paola Vasquez, they were invited to help us understand the claims that are in their flyers, the claims that have been on social media. And in their absence, I'm going to share what I can verify, what I cannot verify, and what is either downright wrong or misleading. So, two things come to my mind when I look at the claims that these candidates are making. First of all, yes, a lot of the claims are misleading and confusing. I'm not sure whose achievements they're always talking about. They are two people of a six-person council plus a mayor. I don't know how any two candidates can claim all these accomplishments, and I don't know why a mayor would be threatened by having two new council people. And I'm wondering sometimes if the implication is that having two new council members might mean an end to the programs and the progress that the town is making. I'd like to think that that's not the case. But there's an air of desperation. And the other thing that strikes me is where is all this money coming from? Five mailers, those flyers are not cheap to print and then to mail, plus all the campaign signs. I mean, both sides have campaign signs, but somebody's putting a lot of effort into this and a lot of money just for two council seats. So I'm going to try to address or come to some conclusions around the nature of the claims, what's really being said about the state of the borough and also the candidates, and also try to get to the heart of where the money might be coming from. What I'm sharing with you here on the right-hand side of the screen is from the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission. And what it is, it's a screenshot of Mayor Chegwin's campaign contributors. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to show you some dots. And then I'm going to show you how I connected the dots. And I'll let you connect the dots for yourself because I'm I'm 90% certain of my conclusions. That leaves 10% uncertainty, but I think you'll get an idea of what I think we can conclude from all this. The names that I've circled here are William Colgan and William T. and William J. Colgan, and down below a Kobe Lifer. These individuals are identified on the CHA Partners website as the principals. And the CHA is a real estate development concern, as is, for example, other people listed here. John Crimmy is also a developer I know. But I'm going to just basically share, these three and use them as an example. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to give folks an opportunity to ask any questions at some point. So I'm just going to go through this and share with you, and then I'll give you a chance to ask questions. This is an article in a real estate and development periodical, a journal. CHA announcing the groundbreaking for 10 North Main Street in Wharton. Again, CHA is these three gentlemen are the principals, and they are also campaign contributors to Bill Chegwin, the mayor. When I look closely at a Norton Vasquez yard sign, I notice that it's paid for by the Norton for Council and Vasquez for Council committees. And the address given for that committee is 11 West Dewey Avenue. And 11 West Dewey Avenue is the mayor's address, Mayor Bill Chegwin. So what I'm doing here is I'm questioning the extent to which the mayor's campaign funds are being shared, and those campaign funds coming largely from developers, being shared with these two incumbents on the council. And if you think about the campaign contributions and where they're coming from, apparently there's a lot at stake in this election, but it's a real uphill climb for challengers to Wharton council seats when the incumbents are so well funded. And to further make the connection between Wharton council and mayor and CHA partners, if you look closely at the image on their website, it looks as though the Wharton mayor and council are actually the poster child for this developer. I can recognize, and I hope your screen is able to recognize our council and our mayor with shovels. So obviously there's a very close relationship here. The principals of CHA Partners are campaign contributors to the mayor. The mayor is not running for office this year. There's two incumbents, and it looks to me like the only way that they could be so well funded would be from those campaign funds.
Well, could I ask a question?
This is a good time to ask a question, yeah.
Ethical questions aside, is this within the boundaries of the law for Chedwigan to accept this money and put it into political funding?
There is nothing that I'm going to present that I want to even suggest that there's anything illegal going on. I believe that this is typical pay to play in New Jersey towns and municipalities. The people that are doing business with the town also make campaign contributions to the town. I'm questioning the fairness. Yes, is it fair that one side be so well funded when they are the incumbents? And what is the desperation about two candidates who want to serve their community? Why is there so much desperation on the part of the mayor to support these two, as though if they don't win the election, somehow Wharton's going to collapse? So I don't know that there's anything even unethical. This is the way business is done in New Jersey. I think it's questionable.
So let me understand this. You don't think there's anything wrong with Mayor Chedwigan supporting Vasquez and Norton? Your question is more to why the level of why the obsession over it.
Yeah.
Why the obsession that having Gonzalez and Hobbs come in is going to allegedly destroy Wharton. That's it, basically.
Yeah, I think when you get five very glossy, well-produced flyers in your mailbox, and all the other efforts that have been made that are well-produced videos, yeah, I just think that there's somebody sees a lot at stake here, and it looks to me like developers are sharing that concern.
Okay. I understand. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure. Thanks for the question. I'm going to talk now. I'm going to dive into some of the claims that I'm seeing on the flyers, some of the claims that are being made, and what I've been able
should I state my name for the record?
Go ahead if you'd like to.
John McCusker, MC, capital C, USKER, 34 Ford Avenue, Wharton.
Okay.
Concerned citizen and taxpayer.
All right.
Okay, continue, sir.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So we're going to start looking at some of the claims that are being made. The first claim is that the tax rate this year is 10.24% less than in 2024, and that the borough budget is 1.2 tax points down from last year. What I did went to all the sources that I could find to validate this. This particular claim is pretty easy to validate if I look at my tax bill. If I compare my 2025 tax rate, the local tax representing the municipality, and compare it to last year, yes, that rate is in fact 10.4% less than the previous year. But the general tax rate is not really very
Accurate.
relevant to a taxpayer, and here's why. The town needs to determine what tax rate to apply to our properties, to our homes and properties that will achieve the local revenue needs in support of the budget. And to do that, they also have to know the assessed value of all the properties in town. So the municipal tax rate is simply a factor that's applied to the assessed value of the properties in town to come up with a local tax levy number. It's not useful for comparison purposes, as we'll see.
It's a collective number, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, the claim that the borough tax or the borough budget is 1.2 tax points down from last year, it seems valid also. The 2025 budget required $106,600 less than the previous year, and I would round that up to 1.2 tax points. So I understand where these claims are coming from, and I don't have a problem with that. But what taxpayers need to know in order not to be misled by that kind of a number is that effective tax rate is really what matters, because it levels the comparisons between towns by factoring in real market values. So the market values between towns vary, and so the general tax rate is going to vary by town, as we've just kind of explained. But the effective tax rate shows what homeowners really pay relative to what their homes are worth. And the 2024 effective tax rates for Morris County municipalities show that Wharton taxpayers pay the second highest effective tax rate in the county. I can provide links to all where I'm getting all this. This all comes from New Jersey. Oh, I think I show at the bottom the New Jersey general and effective tax rates tables. So this is easy to find. It's not it's not anything
Well, Paul,
clever.
can you explain the difference between effective and general tax rate? Again, like in a nutshell, please.
Yeah. So if you compare Mountain Lakes to Wharton, we know that there's some definite variation there between the ratables, the the home values, the real estate values in the town. The only way you need to come up with a way to neutralize those differences, and that's in the effective tax rate calculation. And if you'd like, I can send it to you. I'm kind of just providing this overview, and anybody can put anything in the chat if they want, or email me and ask me for where I'm getting the data, but it's all publicly available. But the effective tax rate equalizes the real market values across towns so that you can make a valid comparison. The idea that the borough tax rate is 16% lower than the state average, I've not been able to find any possible way to make that statement. I looked at the average residential tax bill. In Wharton, that's about $9,400 versus the state average of $9,800. Not even that this would be a valid and meaningful comparison, but Wharton is 4.2% lower, not 16%. The average tax bill for all rateable properties, including commercial and industrial, all those properties is $14,700 versus a state average of $9,200. But that's not a significant comparison or valid comparison. There's too many variables there, especially the size of the parcels. But that claim would be invalid because Wharton is 60% higher. At the Wharton Council meeting on October 27th, this past Monday, I asked whether anyone addressing the council and the mayor could provide a comparison between what we pay in property taxes and the state average. Bob Norton and Paola Vasquez were present. They remained silent. Nobody answered my question. So I'm going to come out and say, until somebody can show me where our tax rate is 16%, our property tax is 16% lower than the state average, I believe this claim is entirely made up. Here's some other claims. No matter how our tax revenues received, the borough is mandated to pay the full school budget. This is making a statement that is true and it's law. And so you don't get any points for saying that. It's intended to dispute an accusation that nobody has ever made, that being that pilot agreements impact the school budget. When the school strikes a budget, it goes to the county for approval. And if it's approved by the county, that budget will be funded. So that there's no and really the municipality has a minimal impact or role to play in funding the schools. This claim makes reference to the last 20 years, borough contributing over $11 million in additional mandatory in-kind services. Norton and Vasquez has not served on the borough council for the last 20 years. When you in reference to the borough-owned, extended, and redesigned parking area for the school, I think the wording is confusing, but I was there at the table when this happened. The rear parking lot would flood of the school, and that had to be, the drainage had to be addressed. That parking lot is owned by the town, so the town was obligated to fix the problem. When the parking lot was redesigned about 10 years ago, it was a collaborative effort out of necessity. The borough was very cooperative, but really just can't claim take any credit for this. But I know Paula Vasquez, and I don't think Bob Norton were even on the council at this time. They're not the council people that I dealt with when we worked in committee to solve the problem. The borough contributions. The borough lists a bunch of contributions to the school, but like any town with any kind of civic responsibility or sensibilities, sharing services between town and the school districts is a given. The town owns salt trucks and snow plows. The school could purchase a snow plow and salt truck for the 2 or 3 occasions it might be needed during the winter. Obviously, that would be, poor fiscal management to make that investment for something used so little. So yes, the town helps maintain with their equipment, with their manpower. This is something that all municipalities should be doing, and I believe they all are doing. And I'm wondering if there's some sort of implication here that Norton and Vasquez are responsible for that, in which case voting them out would impact the cooperation that's been going on. I don't know what you're saying. Who's campaigning here? Are we campaigning for all the great things that the borough is doing, or are the incumbents taking credit for this? Are you implying that none of this would have happened without Norton and Vasquez on the board? And are you implying that if they weren't on the council rather, this kind of cooperation will cease? I certainly would expect not, but there's a lot about these claims that are really so what? They don't really matter, and Norton and Vasquez certainly can't take credit for them. I'll go. I don't think if there's any questions at this point about these claims between the cooperation between the school and the council, I'll entertain any questions. I think that's pretty straightforward, though.
Yeah, I had some questions about the failed attendance.
Yeah.
Why would the flyers funded by Bill Chedwigan say, or funded by his campaign contributions, which I believe is somewhat unethical? Why would they say failed attendance when they're members of the public at this point? They're not elected officials. They're not mandated to attend. So what does that mean, failed attendance?
Well, I'm going to go into all that. Not on this slide, but on the next slide.
Okay.
These flyers and I'm going to say that it's Norton and Vasquez because they're the ones running. I don't know that they put these together. I don't know that they came up with all this, but it's got their name on it, so we're going to hold them accountable to what they're
Yeah.
claiming. Um, they try to take shots at the school. And they're trying to imply, I guess, that one of the challenger candidates, Jennifer Hobbs, is in some way responsible for what they allege are failures of the school. But let's take a look at that. And then, yes, I'm going to get to the attendance issue too. Um, to say that our students are not meeting state proficiency,
Yeah,
there's not a district in the state that
that's
has
absurd.
students who are not meeting state
That's
proficiency.
absurd. Yeah.
What I did is I said, well, Mountain Lakes is probably the highest performing district in the county. 82% of their students are proficient in reading and 67% in math. That leaves quite a few students not meeting state proficiency. So taking the council or the mayor or the incumbents taking shots at the school over student proficiency is a low blow because we should all be part of the same community, not taking shots like that. But it's also misleading, and it really is. I don't know what they're trying to say because students not meeting state proficiency is a statewide phenomenon.
Do you think that this is strictly because Democratic challenger Jennifer Hobbs is at the moment a Board of Education member and they're trying to discredit her personally? I
Well,
can't think of any
John,
other.
I'm going to go through all this, but
Okay.
I'm going to say that when you have the money to send out 5 flyers, and there might be more that I threw out before I started saving them, you got to fill these flyers up with some nonsense. So
Yeah.
somebody's pulling this out of their hat, and yeah, it's obviously directed at Jennifer Hobbs. The idea that our school taxes are 29% higher than the state average, somebody's got to, if you're going to make that statement, you have got to be able to back it up. That is the same statement as the 16% lower statement. It's, I don't know why they stopped at 29% when they could have made it 89% or
Mhm.
something else.
Yeah.
It's a nice uneven number that makes it look like somebody did some math, but I challenge anyone to back that up.
Yeah. That's absurd. Yeah.
Voted for transgender policy with no parental consent. This is supposed to alarm people. This is a Republican dog whistle statement, and I don't even know what they're implying here. Are they saying that no parents had any role in the policy, or are they saying that the policy does not allow for parental consent? All I know is, yes, it's a controversial policy. I'll spend an hour talking to anybody who wants to talk about it, but it's a policy that it makes sense for a lot of reasons, even though it can be deemed controversial. And the parental consent piece comes in every November when you vote for school board candidates. And I was on the board when we had this conversation about this policy, and I don't make any apologies for it. And if you want to talk about the pros and the cons, I'd be happy to do that. But I don't know what dirt they're trying to throw up with transgender policy on a council campaign flyer.
So when the transgender policy came up with the Board of Education, it was done so through the appropriate channels and um, the public had the opportunity to go to the meetings and ask questions and things of that nature,
Yeah.
uh, and contribute.
John, you know this because you were on the board. If
Yes.
you come to a Wharton Board of Education meeting, you will see 7 elected officials debating, discussing any and every issue. This issue was also discussed. I have never seen the council deliberate on any issue. So I will stand by the transparency of our school board any day of the week. The transgender policy came to the district like every other policy does. Every policy is discussed and considered carefully, and there's no call for alarm. Okay. So I don't know what this is supposed to imply. It's supposed to raise people's anger over something, and I just can't explain it more than that. I
Yeah.
do want to talk
I
about.
look at it as smoke and mirrors. Okay, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
I do want to look at absent or late to 38 meetings. Yeah, somebody went, I guess, and looked at the agendas and noted which members were present, which ones came in late, and they're not naming Jennifer Hobbs, but they're implying that it's Jennifer Hobbs, I suppose. I know this about Jennifer Hobbs. I served for many years with her on the board. I know, as all of us have changes in their life, significant changes in their life, it has an effect on your public service. When she was going through changes in her life, if you would have come to one of those board meetings, you would have seen that she brought her kids when she didn't have childcare for her kids. She
Yeah,
made those meetings. She might have been
I
late.
used to play with some of her kids, if you remember, while she
She
was before I became a board member. Go
she
ahead.
she might have been she might have been late, but she wasn't absent. She's not an absentee board member, and I should know, and I can
She's a
attest to
wonderful
that.
board member, and she did
Yeah,
her best. Yeah,
yeah. These are kind of uninformed shots that they're taking. Okay,
yeah,
um, and then this here they're talking about failure of the schools, right? Which council member candidates were these, and did they meet state proficiency standards for spelling?
yeah.
And which school board member failed them?
And there is no D or R next to one's name if one runs for the Board of Education. It's not a Democrat
Yeah,
or Republican up there.
yeah. Well,
So
I just think it's really hilarious
yeah,
that they would take shots at students meeting proficiency standards, and either they can't spell or they don't take the time to proofread because they're in a hurry to get out 5 campaign flyers full of nonsensical claims.
yeah, I agree.
Here's the deal on absent. I think this flyer more than any other stumped everybody because I don't know where they were supposed to be when they weren't on the council. What
Yeah,
were the Democrat opponents expected to contribute before they were on the council? I can tell you they were both contributing taxes. One was contributing her time to the school board, and now both are seeking to contribute. So this is, it's kind of dirt, but it doesn't even make sense.
yeah,
And I think that if this is the
it's
kind of
ridiculous.
logic and that is being applied by these two council members,
Right.
then I think this really is more informative about who they are than it is about anybody else.
Yeah.
And this is also a good time to mention that council members, unlike school board members, are paid a salary for their service to the town. Each of our council people now make something over 13,000 a year for their service. School board members give their service freely.
Yes.
So cumulatively, all the shots that they're taking are really kind of pathetic,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah. The Jennifer is doing the best she can to make as many meetings as she can and as punctual as she can without getting a paycheck,
Yeah,
unlike the council members.
yeah.
Yeah. Go
But
ahead.
again, I didn't want to use this to campaign for anybody. I'm going to focus on what these flyers have said and and try to understand the points that they're trying to make.
Well, I'm not campaigning. I'm just pointing
Yeah,
out that Jennifer, they're the ones that said Democratic opponents on the school board. I mean, they're the ones that threw that into it. The fact that she's a Democrat, not me. So
yeah.
go ahead.
So I took a look at the 5 campaign flyers that I saved, and I also watched a video by Bob Norton as he tried to explain what pilots are. Pilots are pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. And this is an issue that I raised and I brought up at the council, as a citizen, and at the school board table. And since March or February of last year, I've been informing myself on the subject of pilots through a long list of Oprah requests. So what I'm going to tell you about pilot agreements is well documented. I can document it, and nobody has ever disputed my findings or disputed the facts. They dispute my conclusions, but they don't admit to the cost of pilot agreements to the taxpayer. I'm going to get to that tonight.
Okay,
We're going to get to that number.
okay,
But there's a lot about the flyers, even before we get to the numbers, that are misleading. Pilot agreements, developers are seeking agreements with the towns. The towns have obligations to affordable housing quotas, but the developers seek these agreements because they will end up paying less over as long as 30 years than they would otherwise pay in property taxes. So every property in town generates revenue. My home does. And the four properties that we're going to talk about as apartment buildings, they're property like any other property that would otherwise generate tax revenue. But when you sign an agreement with a developer for a pilot agreement, it creates lost tax revenues that the taxpayers have to make up. And so it is in effect a taxpayer subsidy to the developers.
yeah,
The terms of these agreements are negotiable, and the revenue that they generate through payments in lieu of taxes can and should be shared in equal proportion with the other taxing entities in town. So if you look at your tax bill and you look at all the different places that the way where the taxes are distributed, I'm going to say 60% goes to the schools, 21 to 25% goes to the town, and then there's a certain amount that goes to the county, some to the library, and some to some other funds. Okay. When a pilot agreement is signed, 95% of that reduced revenue from that property will go now to the town. It's no longer distributed with all those taxing entities. 5% goes to the county. What would have gone to the schools from those property taxes now has to be made up by the rest of the taxpayers. So they're calling innovative pilot agreements, referencing affordable units, builder remedy lawsuits. Pilot agreements are not innovative. This is nothing that was invented or stylized in Wharton. It's a common money grab now by municipalities across the state because they don't have to share the revenue from these properties anymore with anyone else other than 5% to the county. The claim that these pilot agreements are needed to fund capital projects is ridiculous. Capital projects like roads, parks, infrastructure have always been routinely funded through tax revenue and through grants. If Wharton Borough decides it's going to dedicate this revenue to fund capital projects in lieu of the tax revenue that these properties would otherwise have generated, that's a choice. It's certainly not an innovation, and it's not like those capital projects wouldn't get done otherwise. Pilot agreements are not necessary to avoid builders' remedy lawsuits. The lawsuits come into place if the town is not meeting its affordable housing quota. But pilot agreements were intended originally to make it feasible for a developer to develop an otherwise costly or undesirable property. It's negotiated. So let's say a developer says, I'd like to develop this property, but there's a mine shaft under it. Or this site that I'm willing to develop this property for the town, but it used to be a toxic waste site and I'm going to need to clean it up. A pilot agreement would offset some of those costs or all of those costs.
so it's an incentive.
So it's an incentive to develop undesirable property, but it doesn't have to be negotiated or offered to all developers. However, knowing what we know now about CHA partners, I do suspect that CHA is expecting pilot agreements from the Wharton mayor and council.
Right.
I'm going to take people through some numbers here. There are five properties under pilot agreements. I'm going to talk about the four that are currently occupied. Centennial Court, Avalon Bay, Port Orem, and 10 North Main Street. I have a 6-minute video on my YouTube channel that goes into detail about all of this. I'm going to kind of run through it quickly. The cumulative assessed improved value of these four properties in 2024 was $58.8 million. If you apply the corresponding tax rates, these properties would be generating $1.1 million to Morris Hills Regional and Wharton Borough Schools. Instead, there's $1.1 million now that needs to be made up by the taxpayers. These properties generate zero to the schools. Here's the calculation that you can verify from your own tax bill, your tax statement, your property tax statement. This is where we're getting $1 million that the schools are not getting from those four properties and that Wharton taxpayers have to make up. Again, no one has ever disputed my numbers. They don't like to hear these conclusions. But $1 million in lost revenue to the schools represents 0.103 of the 1.737 general tax rate that is used for the schools.
Yeah.
That's what we have to make up.
That's serious lost money.
It's on average $340 to the average $331,600 residential assessed value.
Yeah.
So Wharton taxpayers pay on average, if your home is worth more than $331,000, you're paying more. But on average, $340 a year to make up for lost revenues created by pilot agreements with the developers. Now, I said there were five properties. There is a 182 residential unit coming online at the L.E. Carpenter site along Chegwin Way. It's hard to come up with a value, but Avalon Bay is about 32 million. I'm going to call this at $32 million. The revenue gap to the schools from just that new property will be another $555,840.
Amazing. Amazing.
So I brought this forward to the council and mayor in a March 2024 meeting when the mayor was trying to explain what pilot agreements are. The part he was leaving out was what I just showed you. It costs residents money when you subsidize developers. The mayor was asked by a resident at that meeting, why is the revenue not being shared with the schools? And he answered her, the schools haven't asked for the money. So the Board of Education created a resolution that was sent to the council asking the council to share pilot revenue, even though it's less than the tax revenue would be, to the same proportions. And by the way, the library suffers the same fate with lost revenue too. So asking the town to share pilot revenue the same way, in the same proportion, the tax revenue from those sites would be shared. The town council never even replied to this resolution. They acknowledged it, receiving it in an agenda, but they are with them pointing fingers at the school, and
Yeah.
it's more than just what's being claimed in these flyers. There's always that they're obsessed with what the schools are doing. Who exactly is looking out for the taxpayers if it's not the Board of Education?
It's not the mayor and council.
So that's kind of my overview of the claims made on these flyers.
It's shameful. It really is shameful.
Here's my questions. What is the worst thing that could happen with two out of 6 council members being new. You know, the mayor is a very strong mayor. He was elected in 2023 to be the president of the League of Municipalities for the state of New Jersey. That's quite an honor from a small town of 6,600 people.
Yeah,
He's very capable.
yeah,
It would not be hard for him to bring up 2 new people, bring them up to speed, bring them on the team. But are they implying that the good programs and services, the good things that they're doing as part of their job and for which they are being paid, would somehow end if there are new members on the council? And I'm waiting for someone on that council to be able to speak plainly about the implications of their actions and their decisions and the effects that they have on taxpayers. They sit on their hands, they let the mayor do the talking, and he tells us what he thinks we want to hear.
shameful.
And I want to go back to the point that I made about who else has something at stake besides the mayor and council and the residents in this election. So, yes, choose wisely, because from what I can tell, the developers already have.
Yeah.
And that's what I've got to share this evening.
Well, excellent presentation, sir.
Thank you. I
And
enjoyed putting it together.
I,
Y-
I'm disappointed as I'm the only member of the audience, but you know, you're recording this, so I'm going to assume it can be accessed.
yeah,
Um,
I'm going to
Many people are intimidated and they don't wish to, um, as you stated, on the Wharton string, they don't want to get in, Chet Wiggins' radar, fly into
yeah,
Chet Wiggins' radar. They're
yeah.
intimidated.
Well, John, I know you did a lot of campaigning. You did some door-to-door work for the challengers.
Yeah,
I get the sense that even some of the people with the Norton Vasquez sign are putting it there for appearances. I'm not
yeah,
convinced they're all going to actually even vote for them.
I know. I have the same, I've been given a wink and a nod by more than a few people in town that are traditionally supportive of the Republican Party in town, and they've kind of had enough.
Mhm. Yep.
But, anything could happen. The election could go either way.
I think it could go
So
either way.
it's not a good idea for me to make a prediction, but I will say my prayers. And I
Well,
will
listen.
say publicly that I've already voted by mail-in ballot for the
Mhm.
challengers, Gonzalez and Hobbs, needless to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Well,
high time and I'm just gonna say it right now, it's high time we started to weed out this dishonesty. I think it's terrible. Um,
it's one thing. We all want to make the council work better. We want to make the schools work better. We want our town to improve. Um, But if you're going to stuff my mailbox with flyers, first of all, don't
substan-
embarrass yourself, number one.
substantiate
And
them. If
number
you're gonna send
two,
the flyers,
be
let-
careful what you say. Somebody somewhere, sooner or later, is going to hold you accountable to what you're claiming.
yeah,
And that's all I really wanted to do tonight.
yeah. Well, wonderful job. You're an asset to the community, Paul. And
Thanks, John. Thanks for
you're a good
joining.
friend. You're a good friend of mine. And you know, is would one be able to access this in the future? This
Yeah,
tape?
I'm right now. I'm about to stop the recording, and I'm going to post this. When I get the recording, I'll post it to the Wharton String site. And
Okay.
I hope it gets more interest there. People can watch it on their own time and they don't have to worry
Watch it
about being
anonymously
identified.
without it being tracked to
Yeah,
them. Because I personally don't care. I
yeah.
mean, I don't care what anyone thinks of me participating in this conversation.
Well,
I don't care. I don't care what the president of the United States and thinks of it. I don't care what anyone thinks. Certainly not the mayor and council, because I'm doing what I know is right by participating in our democracy and verbalizing my opinion and calling out this dishonesty.
Mhm.
But others, I know others in town are are frightened in plain
Well,
English.
I just hope that
Yeah,
this gets back to Norton and Vasquez and they know they've been called out on their claims. So.
yeah. I hope